When drawing with a computer, you must set up your drawing area, just as you would on your drawing board if you were drawing with pencil and paper. You must decide what size paper you will need, what units of measurement you will use, feet and inches or decimals, etc., and how precise you need to be. In CAD, these decisions are called setting the drawing limits, units, and precision. To correctly set up a drawing for printing or plotting to scale, any two of the following three variables must be known. The third can be determined from the other two. First is the drawing limits. This refers to the area that will be utilized when drawing. Second is the print sheet size, or plot sheet. This refers to the paper size. This is the size of the paper where the drawing will be printed. Print or plot scale. This refers to the ratio between the actual size of the object and the printable size of the object drawn. Steps for drawing setup. If you have in mind the general dimensions and proportions of the drawing you want to create, and the drawing will involve using layers, dimensions, and text, the following steps are suggested for setting up a drawing. 1. Determine and set the units that are to be used. 2. Determine and set the drawing limits. 'Then zoom all. 3. Set an appropriate snap type, polar snap or grid snap, snap spacing, and polar spacing if useful. 4. Set an appropriate grid value if useful. 5. Change the LTSCALE value based on the new limits. Set PSLTSCALE and MSLTSCALE to 0. 6. Create the desired layers and assign appropriate line type, line weight, and color settings. Each of the steps for drawing setup is explained in detail here. Set units. This task is accomplished by using the units command. Let's start new drawing. To set the units, type the word units, then press enter. Here, you can change the type and precision for both linear and angular units. Decimal and degree are commonly used. For precision, I will use 0.0 for both linear and angular. Additionally, you can adjust the insertion scale and lighting. Set limits. If you are planning to plot the drawing to scale, limits should be set to a proportion of the sheet size you plan to plot on. For example, if the sheet size is 11 inch by 8.5 inch, set limits to 11 by 8.5. If you want to plot full size, 1 inch equals 1, setting limits to 22 by 17, 2 times 11 by 8.5 provides 2 times the drawing area and allows plotting at half size on the 11 inch by 8.5 sheet. Simply set limits to a proportion of the paper size. I'll type limits, then press enter. I will set the lower left corner to 0, 0. I will use the sheet size of 11 inch by 8.5 inch. I want a scale of 1, 1, which means that what I draw is equal to what will be printed on the paper, which I need to set in the layout and plot later. Therefore, the upper right corner is 11, 8.5, following its length and width. I will delete layout 2 and then switch to layout 1. Click on paper to access the model space. Ensure that the scale of the selected viewport is set to 1 is to 1. This will set the drawing in full scale. Next, I will return to paper and check if the plot scale is also set to 1 is to 1. Select Apply to Layout, then Cancel, because we are not yet going to print it. I recommend having your grid behavior setting, Display Grid Beyond Limits, be turned off, no checkmark. With this, the grids will be not displayed beyond the limits that you set. To set this, go to Model, type in D Settings, then uncheck the Display Grid Beyond Limits. Then type Z for Zoom, followed by A for All, and enter. The proportion of the limits to the intended print or plot sheet size is called the drawing scale factor. This factor can be used as a general scale factor For other size-related drawing variables, such as LT-scale, dimension overall scale, dim scale, and hatch pattern scale. The drawing scale factor can also be used to determine the viewport scales. Since the drawing scale factor, DSF, is the proportion of limits to the sheet size, you can use this formula. DSF equals limits divided by sheet size. Because plot or print scale is the reciprocal of the drawing scale factor, plot scale equals 1 divided by DSF. The term drawing scale factor is not a variable or command that can be found in AutoCAD or its official documentation. This concept has been developed by AutoCAD users to set system variables appropriately for printing and plotting drawings to standard scales. Use the snap command or snap and grid tab of the drafting settings dialog box to set the snap type and appropriate snap spacing and/or polar spacing values. The grid value setting is usually set equal to or proportionally larger than that of the grid snap value. Grid should be set to a proportion that is easily visible and to some value representing a regular increment, such as 0.5, 1, 2, 5, 10, or 20. Setting the value to a proportion of grid snap gives a visual indication of the grid snap increment. If you are not using snap because only extremely small or irregular interval lengths are needed, you may want to turn grid off. Use the Layer Properties Manager to create the layers that you anticipate needing. Multiple layers can be created with the new option. You can type in several new names separated by commas. Assign a descriptive name for each layer, indicating its type of geometry, part name, or function. Include a line type designator in the layer name if appropriate. For example, Part 1H and Part 1V. Once the layers have been created, assign a color, line type, and line weight to each layer. Colors can be used to give visual relationships to parts of the drawing. Use the line type command to load the desired line types. You should also select line weights for each layer, if desired, using the Layer Properties Manager. A change in limits affects the display of non-continuous, hidden, dashed, dotted, etc. lines. The LT-scale variable controls the spacing of non-continuous lines. The drawing scale factor can be used to determine the LT-scale setting. Let's change the limits to 0, 0, and 22 by 17, from 0, 0, and 11 by 8.5. Then zoom all. The sheet size is still 11 by 8.5. In this example, if the default limits based on sheet size have been changed by a factor of 2, the drawing scale factor equals 2, so set the LT scale to 2. In other words, if the DSF equals 2 and plot scale equals 1/2, you would want to double the line type dashes to appear the correct size in the plot, so LT scale equals 2. Assuming you are planning to create only one viewport in a Layout tab, set the PSLTSCALE, Paper Space Line Type Scale, and MSLTSCALE, Model Space Line Type Scale, values to 0. The setting of 0 forces the line type scale to appear the same in Layout viewports as in the Model tab. AutoCAD's default setting is 1. Note, use Region All command to update the drawing. In Layout, set the scale of the selected viewport to 1:2. I hope you have learned from from this video. Please like and subscribe. Comment below if you have questions.